So I'll let our panelists introduce themselves in a moment, but just wanted to say again, I'll be looking at the Q&A chat throughout the conversation, so please post any questions you do have. So the panel today is, will AI deliver ROI on 5G? So really going to be looking at the opportunity for networks and infrastructure for AI to be delivered by telcos. And then we're going to shift the conversation slightly to also look about how AI can help telcos themselves in operating the network. So could I ask the three panelists to introduce themselves? So perhaps start with Terje, then Michal, and then Andy.
Yeah, so if you hear me, Joseph, so I'm Terje Jensen. I'm heading up Global Business Security in Telenor. Telenor is a telco. We are present in 8 different countries with more than 200 customers. So as I said, I'm heading up the business security, but also have been working and are working in strategy projects, including, you know, what is AI, generative AI, RAN, mobile core, cloud, and so forth.
Fantastic. Michal, Sewera, I'm heading the Cloud Native DevOps team in Deutsche Telekom for 5G, and we are responsible for building, running, and operating the Cloud Native 5G core network. Pleasure to meet you, colleagues.
And good afternoon, all. My name's Andy Corston-Petrie, and I lead the Intelligent Service Orchestration Research team, which is part of BT's.
Sorry, Andy, you're a bit quiet. Could you maybe check your mic or speak up?
I will try that again. Yep. Hopefully you can hear me now.
That's better, thank you.
My name is Andy Corston-Petrie. I lead the Intelligent Network Service Orchestration Research team, which is part of BT's Research and Network Strategy division.
Great, thank you all. So I'd like to start off this panel by discussing the opportunities for telecoms operators to generate new revenues when it comes to AI, and looking at the title of the panel, which brings AI together with 5G. What opportunities in particular are there that can tie AI with 5G connectivity, be that private connectivity or public connectivity? So some of the things that come to mind are expanding operators' existing MEC, so multi-access edge compute platforms to support AI applications, or also GPU as a service delivered over at the edge or over radio access networks. So perhaps Terje, you could start off by speaking about your experience at Telenor.
Yeah, so thanks. It's a brilliant question, of course, and I can just maybe start off with a couple of examples. So what we see in some of our engagement is that AI is asked for as part of our B2B offerings or enterprise customers, if you want. And in particular, if you zoom into the operational part of the enterprise, they're asking for some kind of video analytics, meaning, you know, that there is an AI algorithm or machine learning, depending on how we want to define it, you know, receiving a lot of video feeds, and then they are looking into recognizing objects. It could be objects, could be containers, for example. We can come back to maybe to that. It's a port case we have been doing where we are on and offloading containers. It could be used. Are people using safety equipment? You know, recognizing how you do all the helmets and the gloves and everything. It's also recognizing tools. We can come back to that later as well in a yard case. Fish farming, recognizing fishes, you know, is another part of the using AI. And across all these kind of things is what I would call video analytics, so video feeds, which then fed into to an AI engine, if I may, or an AI model or whatever you want to call it. Then, of course, it's a combination of 5G typically, because you also need higher capacity, typically lower latency, higher speed, improved security, and so forth to connect all these high definition cameras. And also in some cases, where we can also come back to later, it's we are supporting remote driving, for example, in a mining case. And that's also driving, you know, shorter loops, control loops. So that means that it's not only AI as, you know, traditionally run in a huge data center, but you need to distribute it. You need to get that algorithm closer to the sources and also closer to the, you know, the application. So that means that you are linking then AI onto and call it an edge cloud. I prefer the edge cloud instead of a MEC, Joseph, as you understand. So and we can have an argument about that later. But typically you need to distribute the AI because of getting these shorter loops, control loops. So that might be, you know, typically where we see the enterprises are using AI in some kind, to do video analytics based on multiple feeds. So that's only one example, I think. Of course, we also are engaging with early phases of what we call network sensing, but maybe using information from the network about the location of persons, so we can track movement patterns. One particular case we are looking into right now is that to predict when a car is approaching a garage, so you can actually open the door when the car is there, and that you need to track the movement of the car over time. And that's a kind of a typically simple AI use case for that. We also have a crowd control or people, ensemble of people. Could be for what is actually in demand this season of the year is, can you tell the tourist shops what kind of tourists are arriving? Are they coming from Norway, Sweden, Germany, UK, whatever? Because the shop owners, they want to rearrange the shops according to where they are coming from. So that's kind of the using AI into that to give advices to the customers in that sense. What we also done, so these are a number of examples of where we see AI into enterprise cases, but we also established an AI factory. I'm happy to come back to that later, where we are selling GPU as a service, meaning that anyone can come and lease that capacity for their use cases. And then it's of course also, it's not only GPU as a service, but there's also library around that one, which could be the story. So the whole monetization or revenue part, the way we are approaching it is that we are sitting down with customers, discussing what are the needs as a first step, and also the long-term view, and then solving case by case by case. But of course, when you do that, you also need to have the long-term journey in your head, so you are scaling all the components. But that's the way we are monetizing. Back to Joseph. Sorry for the long answer, but that's the way we are thinking about monetizing and revenue, being very concrete on the customer case and the customer values by using AI in this case.
Yeah, great. And I think what stands out for me is it sounds like you really deliver integrated end-to-end solutions. So about building the AI use case and how you can combine that with your 5G connectivity offerings. I did just have one follow-up question though. So you mentioned about the need to deploy AI workloads at the edge on edge clouds. What does Telenor see as its role in providing those edge clouds, or do you work with third parties, or do you get the enterprise you're working with to provide themselves? I mean, how do you fill that gap?
Yeah, so just to be starting with one of the issues by characteristics of Telenor. So we are, as I said, present in 8 different countries, and our capabilities and also the organization and the way we are, approaching markets is different. So the whole philosophy what they are following is I call it a modular operating model. So in some cases we are doing, integration. In some cases we have partners doing integration. In some cases we are co-developing with customers on some kind of or an edge cloud platform, for example. And in other cases we are using partners from the cloud platform. That includes also the edge cloud. So it's not one answer to the question you have, Joseph. It depends on the customer case, and also what's the problem to be solved, and also our capabilities in the different markets.
Great, thank you. So I think we can all agree that we see a lot of opportunity for AI to help telcos monetize their infrastructure, services, expertise, etc. But in the past, the telecoms industry has had a lot of false starts with ideas and concepts that seemed promising but didn't really deliver the revenue that's expected. So one of the things that comes to mind, obviously, is edge computing, which we're now going back to the discussion in the context of edge AI. But in the past, we've just had an edge for general compute, and it hasn't really panned out the way we hoped it would. So my next question is for anyone who wants to take a stab at it is the AI revenue generation opportunity going to be real? Is it going to be different from what we've experienced in the past? Or to put it another way, at the moment, is it still very early stages and overhyped? So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
But as I understand, in particular in the context of edge computing as well, right? That's what you've mentioned.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely one of the aspects. So I think I see a lot of telcos talking about the fact that their opportunity lies in the fact they've got this edge infrastructure to deploy AI workloads on. But is that going to be the case?
So 6 years ago, I spent a lot of time working on edge computing, and the that was exactly the same sort of question, like how we can, get new use cases, new business cases around, etc. And I think that probably nobody is able really to tell the truth today. We are pretty much the same stage. However, the difference, how I see it, is that the cloudification, which happened in the meantime, really changed the ecosystem. So you see now, in order to integrate any new functionality with, let's say, a hyperscaler-like architecture, that's much more easy compared to what was, let's say, 5-6 years ago. And I mean, probably nobody knows, how this business will fly. But I guess that now with GitOps, with cloud native 12 factors principle, with automation, with ability to deploy the workloads dynamically. So imagine ability to deploy totally automatically remote UPF along with some edge applications, enabling future AI workloads. That's absolutely possible. And I think that the ecosystem changed in a way. So if I will use the analogy, I think that maybe the vehicles are, still the same, but the road changed. So underlying the infrastructure and the entire ecosystem is much more fluent. And I guess that might really help to speed up the convergency and speed up the ideation phase for any new use cases. At least that's something which we invested as well. We did a couple of demonstrations of those capabilities. We also had a couple of presentations recently describing the TCAS, Deutsche Telekom TCAS, and cloud native ecosystem. So I guess that might be really a significant difference compared to what was years back. That's how I see it.
Great. So telcos have really been building up their cloud platform competencies, and then you've still got the existing business relationships. They've still got the trust and sovereignty aspects, and hopefully in the future that can help deliver revenue from AI.
And maybe one more thing on top of it. One of the things which fundamentally is different is the massive amount of data. So with the cloud architecture, you're able to collect much more data points. And all this hype around AI, we need to understand that it solely rely on the quality of data. More data with high quality data we have, better the output is. So I even had a presentation on FutureNet conference exactly explaining that in my view, the story match between the match between AI and cloud is really a story of the perfect match because of this.
I think this sort of builds on the conversation we was having before this. We had this call to discuss what we talk about. The saying about the dangers of keep trying to push AI as a killer app for 5G. So we can talk about use cases like smart glasses, where perhaps if we haven't need to send insights, send recordings to an AI model and get back insights, you'd need this low latency connectivity. But perhaps that isn't the way we should be looking at it. We should be looking at AI as something that's going to be infused throughout all of our network operations, throughout the B2B operations. So it's going to help optimizing networks. It's helping the networks going to deliver new services. So yeah, I'd like to get your just thoughts on that as we look at how AI can help enhance networks. So Andy, I'd like to direct this towards you and just understand what you're doing at BT to develop intelligent networks using AI.
Yes, thank you. So at BT, we have a three-pronged strategy of build, connect, and accelerate. And underpinning those three different pillars are effectively, certainly as it lands into my own research area, is how do we operate our networks better, and how do we use the technology to deliver customers what they need. Because at the end of the day, there are two objectives. We want to deliver the best experience for customers, and we want to run our networks the most efficiently that we can, run the best networks most efficiently. So if you think about, the different opportunities from AI can play in more of the customer space, and then our network needs to support the customer's use of AI in their applications and services. And you may have heard that referred to as networks for AI. How does our network need to support other people's use of AI? And then there's more the internal use of AI for network operations, intelligence, and operating our networks more intelligently, as we've said, which is AI for networks. How do we use AI in the running of the networks? And if we think of some of the drivers for that, there's you want to have resource efficiency, you want to have optimization. This plays into the different network domains, including in the RAN space. How do you balance energy use with the right spectrum and the right coverage at the point of need? It starts to help us think about what type of services might we want to offer in the future. Are those services programmable? Are they on demand? Are they dynamic in nature and responsive in nature? And AI can certainly play a role there. It's an ever more challenging world of a security threat. How can we operate our networks at machine speed using AI to combat real-time security threats and respond in kind? And then a little closer to some of the work that we're doing is how can we use AI to respond to customer need, customer intent, if you like, and program the network, the right network resources at the right time so that we drive the best possible customer experience. And some of those internal things about resource efficiency, optimization, what does it mean for dynamic and on-demand services? How do we respond to customer intent? Those are some of the areas of research that we're building on for use of AI.
And when we talk about AI in this context, are we talking about non-generative AI or generative AI?
So over the last few years, of course, everything's been about generative AI, and generative AI effectively generates content. So there's a role to play in different telecom spaces with generative AI, for example, customer service and potentially more intelligent chatbots or the customer interface into our business. We think that, and we're not alone, that there could be a role for Gen AI in the decoding of customer intent, for example, as a way of processing the inbound request of what the customer is actually trying to do with their service. But of course, the world now is moving towards agentic AI, which is painting the picture of a world where the AI can actually carry out operations or carry out tasks and potentially play at different layers of the network stack. So this is giving you an execution opportunity that you can play in and around your network systems and your network control systems, your network intelligence, to carry out intelligent workflows. Gen AI may have a role with those agents in the decoding or the processing of the requirement and the generation of the workflow. But the world and the tooling is shifting towards that agentic approach that can potentially have those benefits at all different layers of the network control stack.
And are you seeing it's going to be possible to do agentic AI for the network? We trust generative AI models to handle what's a critical sort of national asset in the case of BT.
That's a bigger topic, I think, than my own work area. There is a ongoing activity and current debate around the industry around telco use of LLMs, and do we need specific telco language models of varying sizes? Doesn't need to be large language model, could be small language models. You'll have seen items in the press of different operators and industry activities looking at more specific telco tooling in that space. And there's quite a bit of work, I think, still needed by the industry to figure out, does that mean that those models need to be trained to speak generic telco? so that we can use them for inference. Does it mean that individual telcos will need to train models to suit, their own networks, their own data, their own operational context? I think that's an ongoing activity and an active activity around the industry.
Great. Thank you, Andy. I'd like to circle back to Michal and Terje to hear about how you're applying AI for your network operations.
Yeah. So okay. So that's a big. Let me maybe address a couple of examples. So, but maybe I can go back to the previous question you asked Michael. I think I was Michael. I very much agree with what he said. It just reminded me of a question I got a couple of years ago on when does the question was, when does Telenor have a nationwide AI coverage? And for me, well, that was very. I think I always also said it. It was a silly question. This is not really how we are thinking about AI at all. We are using AI to solve concrete problems, and then we are solving problems in that way, and then of course replicating all the solution. And of course you can maybe eventually end up with what we call a nationwide AI or whatever that means, or even edge cloud, if whatever that means. But that's not really how we are approaching it. So when we talk about AI in networks, I think what you brought, Joseph, is that we are, and if we may broaden it a bit, the generic approach to AI for us is that we are seeing that AI can be used, of course, in the customer dialogue. There's a lot of generative AI going into the chatbots and summary of dialogues, come with proposals, taking trouble ticketing, for example, and translating that into actions, and even you have agents, running through all the actions. Back to this question I think you raised to Andy on agentic AI. So we are in some operations we are running. We are more than 95% of these trouble ticketing are fully automated, with feedback, including feedback to the customers on what is the issue. But it's not like the agent always need to execute. It could be coming with advice, it could be coming with assessment, and then this could be a human doing decisions. So there are various models there on how that is taken from the customer point of view, through the dialogues, through the actions in that sense. But we're also using AI in the traditional planning, for example, what we call, for the ones working in telcos, it's something we call smart planning. So where, for example, where to put up the next base stations to have the biggest return on investment, for example. There's quite a lot of data that goes into that assessment, not only the technical performance data and cost, but it's also the revenue part of it, which is then of course the market. And it's not straightforward. It's not as straightforward as you might think, that you get all this data and then you allocate the revenue and the cost to a specific site and then you do assessment. It's more complicated than that. That's why AI would be one of the way to do the smarter planning, smarter, if I may, or smart capping, smarter in that sense. We're also using AI in some of the traditional operations, like for example, energy efficiency, which basically turns that we switch off some of the radios during the nighttime, for example. That could be radios on certain technologies or spectrum bands and so on. And there's quite promising indications that yes, you can even take it further, and then you have to decide yourself how aggressive you want to be, because those could potentially a bit affecting the customer experience, given that it takes a few seconds, to get the radio back up. So there is a trade-off to be done there as well. We're actually using also AI. Sorry, you have to stop me, Joseph. You're tired of all these examples. But you're using AI to decide what is the optimal battery replacement time on the base stations. So a battery, when you are discharging it will have different profiles, and by tracking that you can decide or figure out what is the likelihood of a battery starting to fail. And then of course again you could think of this as a simple profile assessment, but actually you have to time it according to, because replacing a battery means that someone needs to go there. And you don't want to have a person going there only for replacing one battery. It could be synchronized with something else to optimize the total cost. So that's so again it becomes a bit more advanced or complicated issue to optimize all this battery replacement. It's not only you go there and change that battery. it should be, timed and aligned with, traveling plans, journeys. Maybe you should do something else on the same site, and maybe you should replace the battery earlier because next week you are predicting that it's going to fail and so on. So that's just one example of, again, trivial, small case, but it saves us quite a lot of money if you think about the field force and everyone who needs to go to visit those sites. Then, of course, AI in understanding the customer, performance, fault management, root cause, for example. Also use of generative AI in innovation and in software development, for example. So there's a long list of use cases, Joseph, where we are using AI in some variations related to the network and network operations.
Thank you. Michal, are these all looking familiar to you at Deutsche Telekom, or have you got anything standing out that's
absolutely. And first of all, many thanks, Terje. I think you really spotted it. The use cases are really very well described. What I would like to focus is more the life cycle management of the network functions, because I'm always repeating that on one side, bringing cloud, we solve the problem of the deployment automation, and that is amazingly working now with cloud, especially with GitOps and declarative deployments, where you no longer need to invest in manual operations and doing things sequentially. It's massively saves time massively. The problem is different. The problem is that with this new cloud decomposition, we get something which I personally call butterfly effect, which basically means you have tons of small ingredients which are changing frequently, and there is statistical chance that small change in one of the item like service mesh can cause major issues later and they are manifesting in your drive test KPI results. And I guess the testing of this and managing this end-to-end requires really completely new operating model. And that's the reason I guess there is a perfect story match between new AI, or let's say it, automated based network operations. And we, Deutsche Telekom, we divided into 3 stages. On first stage, you have development, and here you have massive benefits of AI assisted test regression and validation. Then the second stage is a rollout, a little bit mentioned already by Terje, where we have something which I call network configuration copilot. So someone who is, doing network audits, it gives you a recommendation what parameters should be changed. It also makes sure that there's a consistency between all the components and layers, and you can imagine how massively distributed it is now. And last but not least, extremely important is the service assurance during the operation stage. So imagine you have tons of data, and I tell you that, you have a new drive test results, and this new drive test results gives you 1.5% drop on a certain KPI. And now be smart and tell me what's the root cause behind. You no longer have a world of box or a single responsibility for the vendor. And this famous please provide model, I call it please provide, which basically means operator is sitting in a comfort zone in a chair and is just trying to execute the contract against the supplier. That's no longer the case. We intentionally disaggregated the market, which is really fantastic because it's enabled completely new operating model, and as we discussed before, it rapidly scales the new business development. We are really following the IT industry principles here, especially following 12 factors model. But on the other side, we need to understand that we cannot continue the same operating model as we had last 20 years. It's no longer, no longer feasible. And I guess that especially around agentic AI and also generative AI, this might be really a fantastic set of tools addressing all those 3 stages of a network lifecycle management, assisting operator, to speed up the recovery, to fasten the process for rollout, and those kind of things. And I guess that there is really a massive potential in upcoming years, because more and more operators, they are shifting into this new cloud native operating model. and that will require massive mindset change. Maybe last also comment from my side, because I spent some time on the technology. I think we need to also understand that the role of an engineer, especially on a network operator, will change significantly. It's already changed. And yeah, I said I have this sort of nickname for it, please provide. But I guess that this will be significantly more software development and co-development than just pure administration work. And when I started more than 20 years ago, there was this world of certifications, vendors fighting for their own certification programs, engineers passing the certain exams, etc. All CLI, right? You had the world of CLI and world of boxes. I think that now you need to be more a sort of orchestra man, understanding different tools and different layers to facilitate the lifecycle management more efficiently, which basically means ability to work with databases, ability to work with GitOps framework, with CI/CD pipelines, with Helm charts, but in the same time with this new agentic MCP-based model. And that basically means that the profile and the structure of an operator needs to follow this new paradigm as well. You need to build future-proof or engineering organizations which are not classically divided as it was, organized 10 or even 20 years back. That's how I see it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad you started bringing in people here, because that was going to be one of my follow-up questions. So you're doing a lot of complicated stuff with AI and lots of complicated stuff with networks, and you're putting them together. I mean, how do you find people who've got the appropriate skills in both networks and AI to be able to do all of this? Is it sort of two different teams you bring together, or just the one team that's trained across domains with a mix of skill sets?
I love your question, and actually I am a big fan of destroying the walls, blurring the world together. And I think that one of the biggest struggles which we see in the telecom ecosystem at all, overall, is exactly the very, strict walls between the teams. When I started with cloudification 6 years ago, it was mainly the mindset shift, or let's say the wall between traditional telco guys. Let's call it telco. So when I say telco, means 3GPP standards, CLI, those kind of things, right? Versus AI, versus IT experts, knowing Kubernetes, knowing pipelines, this new operating model, right? And I think that the only, at least from my perspective, the only way to succeed is to combine those things together and get best out of two worlds, right? It's not true that one is more important than the other, right? Telco engineers, they can bring years of operational experience and years of understanding criticality of telco specific workloads. On the other side, guys from IT, knowing all the things around Kubernetes, cloud native, and now recently this AI, they can bring new operating models which together can form really an outstanding stuff. At least in my time, in my team, we really experimented with this, and I'm extremely happy and proud with the results which we achieved. And I guess it's always better to spend the time on proving how we can solve the things in order to spend the time on proving the other team that things are impossible and you have no idea, because I spent 20 years here and you are a youngster and you never, what you can know about the telco workloads. You were a kid when I was already building the first 2G network here, right? And I think that only when you really combine those two things together, you can really build amazing things, future forward thinking.
Thank you. That's fascinating to hear. For my next question, I wanted to ask about the challenges that you're facing with AI, I guess, particularly as it's relating to applying AI for networks, but it could be with AI more generally. So could you perhaps each highlight the one key challenge that's holding back you applying AI to the degree you'd like to? So perhaps Andy, could we start with you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily holding back, but we're certainly in a fast-moving, fast-developing, dare I say, high levels of hype environment at the moment, where lots of tools and capabilities are changing in real time. They're changing in the public domain. The public awareness of tools coming from the large AI providers is unprecedented, I think, and it's leading to difficult questions about what is the right thing to do at the right time. We're firm believers of you apply the right tool at the right time, and that needs to be backed up with the right investment and the right upskilling, as Michal said earlier on. So I think one of the big challenges is investment. AI is expensive, it's big, it needs a lot of resources if you go that way. But are there smaller, more decentralized, more small language model, more flexible ways of thinking about how we architect the intelligence that we need for our operations and for customer services? So I think that still needs a lot of thinking about. As ever with anything in business, it will inevitably come to making that case for prioritizing and thinking about return on investment, competition for resources and things. But the stories about the size of the prize are the things that need to be told on this journey. When you're making a case for anything in the world of, let's say, network operations, network automation, running the network more intelligently, more optimized, we have to make that case because that's the outcome that we're pushing for. And therefore, it's then you should have that goal in mind and then work for the right technology that will help you get there. So I think that's a complex picture and a fast-moving picture, and every conference and magazine and email newsletter is illustrating that there is a world of a complex world of possibility and software development that needs to be navigated in order to help large organizations make the right decisions for moving forward. Yeah.
Great, thank you. What about the other two of you? What are the key challenges you're facing with AI?
Can I maybe so I broadly agree with that with Andy, I think, but just to provide a different answer, maybe different topic. So what I would also mention maybe is that these AI algorithms needs to be fed by data. So the quality of the data needs to be on the level which make it useful, also timely available. So some of the systems are actually designed for offline, based on daily synchronization or even thing that could be changed depending on the AI use case. So the quality and the availability of data, I think, needs to be there. And then when you start doing this, and this is a bit interesting, what I mentioned earlier, for example, start doing with energy efficiency, we came across, that the data formats and even the understanding of the data was not really harmonized from the supplier side either. So you reveal quite a lot of interesting questions, which are going to how to understand this data really. And that's relevant both for the training phase and also for the inference phase, of course, that you don't get any kind of very strange answers and so on. And on top of that, of course, both the quality and timely availability is typically there are gaps in the data, and how do you deal with that? So those are maybe one of the challenges, I think, Joseph, on what we have seen.
Great. So you've seen ROI, data quality issues. Michal, any other challenges you're facing?
Yeah, I would totally agree to a data part, right? And I think that exactly as Terje said, the key challenge is that the vendors, they were never prepared to create the data for the use case which we are trying to apply this right now. And I'm very much against the standardization or forcing the vendors to standardize something like this. I mean, and unfortunately, in most of the cases when I see the effects of standardization, this is really not bringing that much benefit, especially in this area. I mean, looking overall across the OSS, how much OSS standardization versus reality we all know together. However, I guess that at least this mindset shift towards the vendors, that they are no longer producing the logs only for debug purposes, but now they are producing the logs to fuel the future decision-making tree. That's, I think, the mindset change. And it will for sure not come over the night, but I guess that step by step the industry will improve by producing a higher quality data. Because I see that most of the guys today speak constantly about the MCP, AI, MCP. I'm afraid I'm opening the fridge in my kitchen and MCP sit there as well already, since weeks. So I think that for sure there is a sort of hype around it. But I think we need to consider it as a useful tool. And in order for this tool to be effective, you need to have really high quality of data. So here, Terje, I'm totally with you here. I think that that's today one of the biggest challenges, not only with the quality overall, but also with the topic around security. Because, I constantly hear this new buzzword, dark knock, self-healing networks, closed loop automation, etc. That's all fantastic, right? But when we solve the tickets, there is always this sort of keyword or buzzword which I call edge case. And edge case means because of this edge case something happened and this crashed, right? And well, the difference between telco and IT world is that for us, edge cases, cannot be treated as business as usual. If you think, for example, about such a service like an emergency call, right? How you would explain to someone that the emergency call failed and someone even died because you had a sort of edge case in your, machine model, right? It needs to be totally deterministic. And I think that the industry also need to understand that the main difference between IT workloads and the telco workloads is the criticality of the applications. And when we say those 6 nines, we are not, dreaming about it. It's really something which we want to enforce. And I guess that would be really a key challenge to make this vision of dark knock, closed loop automation, etc., really to happen.
Great, thank you. So we just got just over 2 minutes left, and I've not seen any questions. So I'll ask about one more topic, and perhaps one of you can answer. So in the past year, for better or worse, I've started seeing the phrase AI native telco or an AI native network pop up. Does that mean anything to any of you? And if so, what does it mean, and how can we achieve it?
Yeah, maybe I could start, and then of course maybe we can. So of course for us, AI native network means that you are embedding AI in whatever kind of things, and probably we, at least also in the 6G discussion, there is space for AI into many of these network functions. So I think we probably will see that. Then of course it's not to. I think we have mentioned that several times during this session. There's a lot of call it hype or whatever. So shouldn't overdo it. You need to have a concrete problem to solve, and then you use the tools what you have, and then in many cases AI might be one part of the solution there, I think. But you start with the problem, and then I think find the solution to it. And that then when you are phrasing this, when you've done that, then I believe also if you can talk about, is this AI for network, a network for AI, or whatever. So those terms doesn't really, in my mind, it's good to structure and categorize, but that's not really where we should start. But we could of course categorize the solution into those terms as I see it.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to come in there as well. Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about my job working in research is that we are tasked to look into the future and think about the different time horizon periods and think about the vision for the future network. So that raises interesting questions. Looking as far out as we can see, do our future networks look like the networks of today, powered by AI? Are we using AI to, in effect, automate today's business process and intelligence and operations? Or is there an era where we are completely reimagining our business processes? And when you start talking about an AI native telco, notwithstanding that those two categories of AI for networks and networks for AI that I mentioned earlier, it does make me think, are we thinking about our future vision of how you build our network in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? And how do we get there to achieve the outcomes that we need? Because one possible answer is you don't get there from here. Does the future network look completely different? Does our future network operations powered by AI look very different from today's? In order to build practical steps, as Terje says, you've got to start thinking about how do you make those first steps? Which areas do you tackle first? What are your priority areas? But there is a space, I think, particularly in the research world, to think, what does that future look like? And how different could future networks need to be or could be in order to achieve future outcomes?
Thank you, Andy. That's some interesting food for thought.
Maybe one last comment from my side on this. 6 years ago, when we started the cloud native journey, we realized that all the operators and suppliers in the world started to claim cloud native. So then we spent yet another 6 years to try to define what cloud native is. I just hope, as a conclusion of this panel, is that now the same will not happen with AI, that we will spend next 6 years try to define what AI telco native is. And instead of it, we will just try to, exactly like Andrew said, try to power our networks with AI tools. That will be potentially much, much better and effective for sure.
Great, thank you. So we're over the time, so to avoid Annie kicking us off, I'll hand it back over to her. Thank you all for attending.